Hi, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Anthony Veasna So Fellow Reading. And I'm super, super excited to introduce our readers for tonight. Unfortunately, we have two readers who were unable to make it because of various reasons. So hopefully, our small and mighty group will read for the spirit of everybody. Okay. And before we start, I just like to say that if you have not heard of Adroit Journal before, it's been around for the last 10 years. We publish poetry, prose, and art. And it's been founded by Peter LaBerge. And the Anthony Veasna Scholar is a new program. It's just been around since 2023. So this is 2025, not too long ago. And this year is really special because it is the 50th anniversary of the Vietnam War, and a lot of Southeast Asian authors are looking at this also. And I would imagine Anthony Visnaso, if you know of his legacy, he was a Cambodian American writer. So I imagine this would have been important for him as well. I feel extremely privileged to have been a reader for this round because I have another Cambodian American friend who passed away like Anthony, and they were both writers. So I feel very connected with that whole spectrum. Um, so my hope, and I think the hope of everyone from Adroit, is that this program uplifts the voices that embody the spirit of Anthony's writing and his beliefs and just his brilliance. So I would like us to welcome the three writers who are here tonight, who are gracing us with their fiction in the issue with the scholars. Okay, we have Yun Wei, Hiya Chowdhury, and Mayookh Barua. And our first reader tonight is reading from China. She's actually supposed to be in she's going to Switzerland later, but right now she's in China. Um, Let us welcome Yoon Wei. She received her MFA in poetry from Brooklyn College and studied at Georgetown University and London School of Economics. She has been awarded second place in the Boulevard Poetry Contest and first place in the Geneva Literary Prizes. Her poetry and fiction appear in over 15 journals, including Poetry Daily, Brooklyn Rail, Michigan Quarterly Review, Shenandoah, Poetry Northwest, Wigleaf, and of course, now Adroit. Her debut novel is represented by Levine Greenberg Rosten Literary Agency. She works in global health in Switzerland, where she relies on chocolate and tears to survive mountain sports. So let us give Yun a very, very warm welcome and listen to beautiful words.
Wow, thank you so much for the introduction, Cherry Lou, and thank you to everyone at Adroit. This has just been such a huge sort of confidence booster and motivation to like keep writing. And I think I was telling Cherry Lou earlier because we had done a reading together, I think, before we both had babies. And I think since then I felt like my writing life really stopped and I wasn't sure if I could keep doing this. So this has been so encouraging. And it's just such a privilege also to be in the company of the other scholars. And I hope we can really like keep in touch and keep please share good news as we go forward with this writing journey. So I'll read, I guess I'll start with an excerpt from the piece that will be in this issue. It's called The Drive. It's a long piece, so I'll just read just probably the start of it. It's inspired by the story of Fritz Haber and Clara, his wife. For those of you, who haven't heard of them, Fritz Haber, he was the person who invented ammonium. And this incredible invention actually saved probably millions of people from famine because all of a sudden agriculture could advance immensely, and they could produce enough food based on that. But then I guess the other side of new technology is that he also decided to really work for the German government in creating, poisonous gases in for World War One. He really felt like it was the right thing to do as a patriot, and he was a Jewish German citizen. But his wife Clara, who was a brilliant scientist in her own right, although at that time as a woman could not work, she was a pacifist, and so they had a major. I guess you can imagine sort of the major disagreements that they had. So this is sort of setting in modern times kind of interpretation of their relationship. And let me just get started. So the drive. They never would have gotten married if Clinton had won. On the night of the 26th election, Hannah and Nate got in the car and drove west. He said he had family in Pennsylvania. She got the Volkswagen keys out of her purse. They had already driven out of DC by the time he first spoke. I like your hair. Reminds me of a geyser. Her high ponytail in a neon pink scrunchie had taken half a can of hairspray in 55 minutes before the 90s themed election party. Nate, she had met a few times before, but always in large enough groups where they barely ventured past each other's names. The silence of the party, after the last date turned red, was making her nauseous. She had followed him out when he went for a cigarette. My stomach hurts, said Hannah. It'll pass, Nate said. The immediate effects of shock tend to wear off within 15 minutes. He wore wire-rimmed glasses. His high shoulders would unhunch when he spoke. Angles of the nose, the narrow hips, would grow sharper. He had a radio voice that she found soothing as her eyes set on the road dashes ahead. She was soft-waisted and thin-voiced. He mistook her mildness for kindness. By the time they left I-495, she knew he was getting his Ph.D. in biochemistry and worked for the government. By 270 North, he learned about the time she fell out of an ash tree and her grandmother made her apologize to the tree. Halfway through 70 West, they agreed that people who worked in humanitarian organizations were the least humane, and that sparkling water was just a way to give you gas. In Pennsylvania, his family stuffed them with mac and cheese and cries of revolution, then laid them to rest on hard pillows. Nate came into the guest room where Hannah was itching under the wool blanket. Years later, Hannah couldn't remember if the sex was passionate or just intense. Either way, on the drive home to DC, they were already talking about ski weekends in Vermont and whether they would get a cat or dog if they ever decided to get a pet. Mostly, he had a voice that folded and broke her. They married on his great uncle's farm. Her upstate New York family, weeded down by infertility and heroin addiction, made for a quiet, discreet corner table at the reception. It was Nate's job that made her want a second child. She didn't think she would after the first one. A lemon-haired, screaming bun of a girl that they named after Nate's aunt had nearly torn her in half. Hannah spent her 2-month maternity leave stitching herself back together, and by the end of it, she had run out of thread. She didn't go back to work, having already forgotten the beige wallpaper and thumbtacks in the shape of whales and why she had joined the nonprofit in the first place. When Nate finished his PhD, the government offered him a team leader position. Then the same year their daughter was born, his own lab. As his hours at the lab lengthened, their H Street garden apartment grew to a 4-bedroom in Alexandria, then a 2-garage house complete with fenced-in yard and patio. Their daughter couldn't fill all the rooms of the house, so Hannah asked to have another. Nate looked at his wife and his daughter flattening applesauce on the high chair tray, made some unknown calculation in his head, and said yes. Their son was yellow-haired too, like Nate, and even had his sharp angled joints, as if his genes couldn't help but wash out hers. It was easy to hide in the thinness of her voice, behind the noise and spills to wipe, especially while the kids were still young. When they started going to school, her blue days started to show, though not enough for Nate to look up. There were times when Hannah found Nathan's ability to focus admirable. Once, when he was fixing the toaster, there was a power shortage, and he had lit candles and continued to fix it while their son screamed from his crib, and their daughter used lasagna as her breadcrumb trail to navigate through the living room. That single-mindedness, pristine in the middle of chaos, it scared her. Scared, his colleagues were, or so she thought when they went to holiday work parties, the way they laughed at his jokes with flattened eyes, or how they drained their cups to hasten their return to the bar. With her, the spouses engaged in carefully chosen small talk to avoid spilling any candor that would be shared with her husband. He found her a job at the lab. Once the security clearance was approved, she started out as an administrative assistant, then transferred to data entry. That was when she knew, one morning while sipping grainy coffee in the break room, they were working on a weapon. Though there were other words for it: protection, safety, shield. So I'll stop there and I'll just maybe end, since I am joining you from China, I thought I would just end with a flash fiction piece that first appeared in Wigleaf. And this is partly inspired by my great-grandmother's story. How to Catch a Sun. After her older cousin from the city told her that staring into an eclipse gives the ability to see into the future, Sun Huiyang looked. It was 1928 in eastern Sichuan. She was 12, and the sun was a disk around a black moon. She looked until she went blind. Her eyes turned to milk, and she couldn't see tomorrow.
Oh, we may have lost Yunwei. She did mention earlier that she might be having VPN issues, so let's see if she comes back. Yun, are you there? Okay, you've frozen. Yes, yes, Yun, you're frozen. We still can't hear you though. Okay, that's understandable, Yun. We know technical issues, but it was just getting there where we're in the grandma story. Thank you so much, Yun. That was such a pleasure hearing you read. And as Heidi mentioned, please read the rest of the story tomorrow when it goes live. And now let us go to our next reader, Hiya. Hiya Chowdhury is a writer and student from Delhi, India. She is an MFA candidate in prose at UMass-Amherst, and her work has previously appeared in Rust+Moth, Leon Literary Review, and elsewhere. Hiya is currently working on her debut collection of short fiction. And I just want to add that Hia is getting published back to back. So she was in the last issue and now she's in this next issue. So very, very admirable.
Thank you, Cherry. That's so nice of you. No, Adroit has been so kind. I feel like it's so rare that you get to see your work in print, and it's always such a sort of like a blessing when it happens. And thank you so much for that introduction, Cherry, and for inviting me to this. Um, so I'm going to read sections of from the middle of one of the stories that is going to be in print next issue, and one of the stories that I sent for the application for the fellowship. I think this story came as a response to, I really wanted to write something that kind of articulated the compulsory, or like the violence of the compulsory nature of motherhood and marriage, and sort of that nurturing sensibility that is so often required of our women, no matter where you go, no matter how old you are. And it's something that's kind of very insidiously brought upon any female life that kind of exists. And I really wanted to contend with like what the violence of that system might be, and what kinds of violence might erupt in conversation with that. And so this story is about a young woman who gets married and has a child and finds herself at odds with sort of the happiness that she's meant to feel in those roles. So I'm going to read just a small section from the middle of the story. You don't really need to know much of what's happened so far. She's just having a really bad thing. But here's first. A week after the wedding, Ma invites all the women who live on their street to come see Ila. Ila enters the living room and they run their eyes over her like she is lunch meat on sale. But these women understand the importance of good produce, and so their eyes are soft, full of possibility. A rowdy titter blows through the room. Beautiful, beautiful, they croon and caw as they move away the coffee table and pull Ila to the floor inside their tight circle. She squats, a sea of blanching, paling hair becoming a canopy over her head. Only a week. No wonder she's still so perfect, someone says. They all talk as though she isn't there. Does she cook? Someone pipes up. How's her hand with salt? You know, my daughter-in-law. The voice delves into a story about a frivolous girl, too heavy-handed with her spices. You don't want to be like her, the story ends. Most stories follow with this one, and they all swivel around the room like an angry draft. Remember the one who ran away? The one who got that job and never cleaned the house anymore? The one who chased her ma off and took half the house for herself? The one who never had a child? They all sound the same until someone says, Ila should have a child. There really is nothing like it. That story is for Ila alone. And they all crouch down to look at her. Ila pulls her knees closer to herself and meets nobody's eyes. When another cheer spreads across the room, she understands this to be the correct answer. Her husband comes home when the women have disassembled into the night. He rustles in through the bedroom door, a hand lacing his hair in a way that tells Ila that it has been a long day. The boys want to meet you, he says, dropping into a familiar dent in the bed next to her. They don't believe me when I say I've got a wife now. My own wife. 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 He says it differently. 6 months after Ila becomes a wife, she is on her way to becoming a mother, and she has little memory of how it had happened. Her husband puts his own demands down on the kitchen list each night, and she crumples under him dutifully like she has been taught. He huffs into the side of her neck till she scabs over from the heat in his breath. Ila wants it to feel more purposeless, she thinks, when he rolls over from the effort, brows furrowed and body tense, as though he has been digging for something valuable inside her. She does not complain, but she wonders sometimes if that is because she lacks the stomach for it or the vocabulary. He is stronger than she is. He sinks his nails into the bed frame and leaves small crescents on the wood. Ila can barely fist a wrinkle into the sheets. Any protest from her would likely be amusing to him. When he leaves for work early the next morning, no longer has any obligation to be loving when he thinks he is asleep. She feels both crucial and oddly forgettable in his bed, like wax on a candle. Soon the bathroom mirror becomes a reflection of somebody else. Ma says this is good. It is good that she cannot recognize herself anymore. She's growing so quickly, so beautifully. Her husband picks up a night shift at the pharmacy on the main road, a hairpin turn away from their street, and no longer sleeps in their bed. He comes back at breakfast for a fresh set of clothes and kisses her belly, but the scabs on Ila's neck remain dry, untouched. Strangely, this stings Ila the most when she bends over herself to wash his empty lunch dabbas, to wring out his wet undershirts, to polish away the scars he leaves on their bed frame, elbows digging into her belly. When he touches her now, she knows somehow that he is only touching his child. He talks to his mother on occasion about the best way to raise a child. She insists that he needs only to look at himself to know what is right. Then she peels the skin off an orange in one long, wilting motion and says, "Like this, son. Everything is meant to happen in an easy stride, like the flow of a river, like the smear of a paintbrush." There is nothing more to think about. Soon Ila wakes up alone every morning and curses aloud when her feet feel the weight of her and her stomach stretches into searing pain. The obscenities steady her for the moment, and she is surprised at who she is becoming. Still, she is the wife of the house. Ma puts her feet up on the coffee table when Ila cleans the living room floor under her. But she brings the women on their street to see Ila every day, a hand latched so tight to her stomach that it almost looks kind. The women whisper about the gassiness, the puffy ankles, the blood on the rim of the toilet, the little moments where the kitchen knife looks better suited to other tasks. All the things they can never say to the men, they say here, prodding Ila's stomach till she twists her face into a smile. They all guess she's having a boy by the way she carries herself, and Ma seems overjoyed at the thought. She gives Ila an old, stained cotton blanket. "I swaddled my own son in this, and now you will use it for my son's son," she says. And everyone seems very impressed at how swiftly the air in their house turns fiction to fact. Her husband walks into the bedroom one morning, home earlier than usual, just as Ila clambers out of bed and grunts her daily profanity, louder every day. "Watch your tongue," he barks, unbuttoning his shirt. "You're about to be a mother." Mother. He says it differently. The bark follows Ila to the drawer under their bed, shiny with bottles of her husband's beer, hidden away from Ma and the prying eyes of the street. She puts a bottle to her lips and feels the liquid pool at the pit of her stomach, dark and bitter. That night, she dreams of a demon child, peeled raw and poisoned by his demon mother.
Thank you, Hia. That was amazing. Yeah, as you were reading, I just kept thinking, once you have a child or go through that process, it never leaves you. It's very haunting. So I was getting flashbacks. Anyway, thank you so much, Hia. And for those who I noticed there were a few people who just joined us. Again, we are reading from the Fellows of the Anthony Veasna So Scholars. Unfortunately, we are only joined by three and not all of the scholars tonight for various reasons. So Yun had just read earlier. Now he had just read, and now last but not least is Mayookh Barua. And let me tell you about Mayookh, something that I found out not maybe half an hour ago. Mayukka is taking a doctorate, but not even in fiction, but in creative nonfiction. The way how my jaw dropped, I don't think anyone noticed, but I did. So kudos to Mayukh, and super excited about the reading for tonight. Okay. Now, the more formal introduction. Mayookh Barua is a Los Angeles-based writer from Northeast India. He is currently a Ph.D. candidate in USC's Creative Writing and Literature Department. You see how he doesn't even mention it, right? Um, his work explores sexuality, art, mythology, education, and family through a queer South Asian voice. A 2023 Roots, Wounds, Words Fellow, his work appears or is forthcoming in Michigan Quarterly Review, The Pedestal Magazine, The Audacity by Roxane Gay, Litro Magazine, and elsewhere. And now, Mayookh, the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you, Cherry and Heidi, for doing this. It's so lovely to listen to Hia and Yoon. Like, it was just amazing, and the bar is set a bit too high, and I'm not that tall, so we'll figure it out. And I thank everyone at Adroit. I think one of the things about that we were talking um, with my friends, how do you pronounce it? And I'm like, I don't know. We'll have to figure it out. Is it Adroit, Adroit, and is it French? Is it Italian? And I'm like, oh, we'll figure it out. So I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. And I thank Chris, who's one of the editors I was talking to, Kalpana and Summer, um, and all of my friends who are here. Thank you so much. I can see some of you, and thank you so much for supporting me. This story is called Things That Move Between Pastures, and I wrote this during my MFA, and it's taken like 2 years to finish this. And it's about when he was talking about the story, I was like, I didn't figure out what to just tell people about this story, because I was like, well, it's about two gay guys, trying to, not cry and break down as they confess or not confess things. And I think at the heart of the story is a certain kind of longing for a life that could have been lived. And grass is always greener on the other side, kind of a thing. And it's about grappling with the present moment in relation to a past that could be challenging, difficult. So I think that's what the story is about. And I will read from the middle of the story just to entice people. And it starts from a scene where our protagonists are interacting with each other in bed. I'm just giving you context, just so that people are not completely disoriented. So here goes. Things that move between pastures. Maybe a couple of days, but not too long, I hope. If I had to really answer him in, I would have confessed that I was awaiting some news from a broker in Delhi. He was searching for a one-bedroom apartment. Every 3 days for the past 2 weeks, I asked the broker if he had found what I wanted: a balcony with a view of the sky, the bathroom not beside the kitchen, with an AC, a partition between the bedroom and the rest of the house, and in a nice neighborhood. This was the house I shared with Samir in Delhi's Rajouri garden. On the hot summer day when he disappeared, I had made our favorite mango smoothie. While looking for him, I found the note in the mirror with the short clipped sentences, like in a telegram. At the end, it said, I have to leave. I love you. I drank that smoothie. Its thickness fell down my neck slowly, making me sick, then projectiled out of my body. As days became weeks, the quiet from Samir made the sky clear. The wall was peeling, the sink never stopped tapping, the dog barked all the time. The AC sometimes laughed at me, almost a chortle, as I lowered the temperature. But when Samir was there, the AC hummed like the beginning of a song. I didn't even notice the sink. The dogs howled, the love of the night. The walls were abstract paintings. I was warned about this homosexual need for a marriage to a woman. My friends told me, do not move in with Samir or I'll be nowhere. They were wrong. After he left, I still had a place to stay, but I did not want to stay there. I'm glad you came to Punya's Namkaran then. Heman finally looked at me. There were those eyes of a fish, round and alert. There was no way I was missing your son's naming ceremony. I laughed and lamented out of envy. I quietly tapped the wood of the bed frame to keep the envy from getting to Punya. Otherwise, he would become an innocent casualty of my yearning to have someone. I never wanted to go to the ceremony. Aita forced me to come with her. She dismissed any refusal on my part. She didn't want me to sit in the room all day. I know. I have a son now. It feels strange. He shook his head. He's a beautiful child, I said, wrapping my hands around my knee and pulling it closer. The warmth of Punyo's body was yet to leave me. An hour ago, I'd folded my arms around the ball of flesh and held it tight, lest it slipped. He stuck his tongue out, and I wondered what he imagined my body to be. Could he smell the longing for his father on me? Children know these kinds of things outside the realm of comprehension. How quickly, like clean water, such discernment was spoiled. I slowly rocked him to create a memory of my arms. Maybe he would remember something in the future. I could ask, "Do you remember me, Punyo, when you were a child? I rocked you for a few moments." And as I asked this, it would become not about the strength of his memory, but rather about whether I was memorable or not. I came to a pause, noticing his full lashes, button nose, and big ears. I'm great with children, especially ones without consciousness. But the unexpected children of past lovers, I was not the most accustomed to. The thing about the past, the odd, seemingly unrivaled part, was its encore in new shapes. "He does not look like you, though," I grinned. "I thank Krishna for that." He laughed. "But you look like..." Hemant stopped and his brows moved inside his temples to pick a word. "Like I've been in the city for too long?" I completed his sentence out of habit. "No, untouched," he said. "Untouched?" "Yeah, like the world has not touched you." He stepped closer and inspected the parts of the body above the quilt. He touched my hair, which fell to the cups of my clavicle. The fingers from the past were an amicable knife, comfortable and piercing. "How did you grow such long hair? Look at me," he pointed at himself. "They say village water is fresher, but here I am balding." We laughed. "It must be nice to be in a big city, right?" His eyes gleamed. "Sometimes it is." I smiled. I started growing my hair out after I arrived in Delhi to attend college. I grew it out to grab some fondness from men. It was a way to let everything hang out. All of my apprehensions about liking men, all of my disdain for being bullied in school, all of the chaos that ensued in the family from being seen as like women. The thing one aborts in the womb, from having the reminiscence of the gender that was not assigned at birth. I chased my freedom to Delhi, to Samir. "Then what is it?" He leaned in. Chutki rushed in and made an akimbo. "When will we play cards?" She demanded an overdue debt. I was shocked to hear that from her. Just 8 years ago, she was a wet towel in my arms, and now she understood time. She whistled out of the gap that had replaced her milk teeth. Her mother told me that she broke it off with her little fingers and without a dropped tear. "Chutki, I'm so sorry. I need to go walk Hemenda home. Can we do it once I'm back?" I got out of bed and held her face, forcing her to look at me. Doubt made her eyes squint. This must have happened to her before. Her eyes looked calm and worried at the same time, like she had seen a familiar ghost. "All right, but promise me you will before we sleep." She folded her arms in protest. "I will, my Jaan, I will." Then I kissed her on her head where her fringe parted. "I want to catch some fresh air while I'm here. Do you want to walk a bit?" I looked at Heman. "Sure, as long as you promise me to take me to the city." He stood up smiling. The sun was sinking as we walked. Light chasing the sun oiled the sky for the bubbling stars. "So, where is your home?" I asked him. "We walk straight and then take a left, just beside Robin Koka's place. Remember, right?" I hesitated a bit. I didn't know if I should recognize that place or not. I wanted to give an answer that kept questions at bay. "Yes, I remember," I said, looking down. "Those were the days, sneaking out to the tea garden to watch a movie. Was that the third time we were meeting?" No, that was many weeks into my summer. The first time, I remember. Oh yes, you were catching fish. I thought. I almost forgot. "And what was the second time?" he asked. "Who remembers the second time?" I said with a smile. "I do. It was when you were reading the book." Hemant snapped his finger. The echo of the click bounced around on the pebble street. "Oh wow, how do you remember that?" "I remember many things, my friend. Remember how Rohit danced Bihu with those drunk tea pickers? And we could not find Radha for an hour or so playing hide and seek? And you'd seen a snake and chased after it? I cannot believe you did that." He shook his head while laughing in disbelief. Maybe Heman had forgotten most of the bad things. When bad things happen, one either recounts it in a loop all the time or lops it out of sight. Maybe we remembered some parts and discarded others just to be able to live, to go on without asking too many questions. I looked into Heman's face for an answer. Me neither, I said, mimicking his disbelief. Do you remember how shocked you were when I took the firefly here when we were returning from Robin Coca's place? He turned to me and made a ball with his palms. There was some space between his fingers to let air in and dark out. I thought you'd kill it. I tried to pull apart his fingers like the last time. Why do you think I would kill it? Because I saw you kill those fish the first time I met you. The first time I met Heman, I saw him crouching at his reflection on the shallow waters of the Paddy, far from our houses. He was suspicious of me before his cousin introduced me as Aita's grandson. Then he winked at me and went back to his busy task. He focused on the small net between the pond and the Paddy, looking for fish. After catching one, he would strike the head of the wriggling fish on the ground before placing it in a small steel bowl. On one such blow, some blood splattered on my toes. I searched for some shape there in the string of blood. Before I could, he wiped it with apologies. This was the first time he touched me. Suddenly, one of his dead fish jumped back into the water. I gasped. The dead had come alive. The unnatural had happened in nature. Since then, I always imagined that the bleeding fish to have lived a very robust life, at least more than the other fishes in the same pond. It must have done something. It must have made some meaning out of escaping a steel bowl of death. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mayookh. It's so interesting hearing you read it because it took me back to when I was reading, but obviously reading it to myself. So it's so fascinating to hear you read it and still get that longing that really predicates the thorough line of the story, you know? Such beautiful work, everyone. So thank you, Mayookh. Thank you, Hiya. Thank you, Yoon. This was such a pleasure. I congratulate all of you on becoming the 2025 Anthony Veasna So Scholars, and I hope that this marks something grand in your chapter ahead, whatever it is in your literary career. So I really hope and wish for that from the bottom of my heart. So thank you so much for attending, for the attendees. And yes, as Heidi is mentioning in the chat, if you came in late and missed the full reading, the recording will be available on our YouTube channel tomorrow and linked with the issue. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a good night or good morning, because I know there are people from the other side of the world. And thank you so much. Thank you all. Have a good night or good morning. Thank you.